Hi, I'm Doris Epstein, and welcome to MENSCHlife TV. Dr. Tony Galea is known all over the world for his extraordinary skills as a sports doctor, but very, very few know about his mystical and strong connection with Israel and the voluntary work that he does there. And later we have Adam Epstein, who at 26 turned his back on a career as a lawyer to found a social network for recreational athletes called Huddlers. Tony, welcome to the show. Hi, Adam.
Hi, thanks for having us.
We're going to start with you, Tony. Let's take a minute to get into this because it's an amazing journey that you've had over the last 12 years. You grew up in Etobicoke.
Yes.
Your parents are from Malta.
Correct.
You went to Catholic schools.
Yes.
All your life.
Yeah.
And you hardly knew any Jews.
No.
Yet, 12 years ago, at the height of the Intifada, a thought came into your head and wouldn't go away. Go to Jerusalem.
It did, and I went.
And you went.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
It was a strange thought, but it just, stuck in my head, and I jumped on it, and I told my wife I'm going to head over to Jerusalem. And she thought, why? And I just thought, I'm not really sure, but I feel like I need to go to Jerusalem. So I ended up getting on a plane, and I went to Jerusalem. And a whole bunch of things happened when I was there that I really got attached to the country, the people, the culture, and opportunities stemmed out of that first journey where, I've been back 30 times since.
You go back and you are extremely involved with Sheba Medical Center.
Yes, I am.
What do you do there? And why Sheba, of all the hospitals in Israel?
Well, it was by chance I met a couple doctors there that I was interested in doing some research and developing an advanced center for rehabilitation for soldiers and general people, and they directed me toward Sheba Medical Center just outside Tel Aviv. And I met the team and the doctors, and we've had a relationship ever since.
So you go there and show you the latest techniques that you've...
Well, what I did is I took what we do in sports medicine and the applications and have applied them to general rehabilitation, to normal people and soldiers that have been injured in battle or during their duties as a soldier. So we used different types of measurements, different rehab. And then what we did is they asked me if I could raise funds for the center, and I started raising funds for the center.
And now we have Canadian Friends of Sheba Medical Center in Canada.
Yes, and it was always in Canada. It was just not that active. And they asked me to kind of resurrect it and bring some life into it, and we did about, I think, 11 years ago.
So you are going back and forth.
Yes.
You have 7 children. Mm-hmm. The youngest is 4.
Almost.
You have a clinic,
Yes.
a huge clinic.
Yes.
With a staff and patients. Mm-hmm. You write.
Yes.
We'll talk about your book, Dr. Galea's Secrets to Optimal Health. And you go to Israel. You're going back and forth to Israel.
Yes.
As well, you've become immersed in Jewish studies.
Yes, I have.
Tell us about that and how it's changing your life.
It's difficult to explain, but the way I can articulate it as best I can is Israel is like a precious diamond, but it's only recognizable to someone's soul. And there's something there if you allow the soul to kind of direct you And it's almost the food, direction, clarification. It precipitates a journey that's not external but internal. And once you start the journey, you come up against all these obstacles that that we've developed as kids and as adults to survive the world we're in. But at the same time, there are impediments to developing the nature of the soul. And for me, going to Israel and Jerusalem and Jewish studies has allowed me to look at those barriers and kind of knock down those walls to allow my soul what it needs to mature.
So this is a spiritual journey and a spiritual expansion that Israel helps you achieve, helps you develop within yourself.
Well, I've come to the conclusion that it's not just as an individual, but I think if the world would allow Israel to do what it's capable of doing, the whole world would find the same conclusions, would develop the same insights.
Tony will be back in just a minute. More with Dr. Tony Galea. Come back with us. I'm talking with Dr. Tony Galea and his really mystical connection with Israel that continues and expands. And in fact, you bring people with you.
Yes.
When I met you, you brought American football superstars Javon Walker, Jamal Lewis, and Gary Baxter. And you also brought Canadian filmmaker Jacob de Boer.
Yes.
Why do you bring these people?
Well, there's a bunch of different reasons, but for the football players, they've grown up, they're multimillionaires. They grow up in a kind of culture that's very materialistic, and they have very little time to interflect or look inside themselves about what the world's doing, what happens outside their little confines of what they believe is life. So when they come to Israel, first they have a lot of misconceptions that there's bombs going off every street corner and they're going to get killed and there's got to run for shelters. But then when they get there and they see, what a beautiful city and what a beautiful place and what a beautiful people, they have a whole different outlook.
But you do more than give them the tourist superficial outlook.
Well, I kind of make them stay in like really tough confines. There's no television, no radio, little tiny rooms at the hospital. And they have a lot of time to listen to their own thoughts. And then I'll take them to, say, Masada. I'll make them climb up the mountain as part of their rehab. And but they get a lot of insight about their own, who they are as humans. Their money's not as important as it once. They don't blow money on frivolous things. They see what the people are really about, because no one cares about American football in Israel, so they're not a superstar in Israel.
They're just
people.
You also arranged to get them invited to modest homes for Shabbat.
Yes, because the other thing I wanted them to experience what the beauty of a Jewish family is on the Shabbat, and how the children interact with the adults and the grandparents, and how the grandfather will lead the Shabbat dinner, and how close they are and how important it is to be family. And the model for them, a lot of them didn't grow up in a secure family, broken homes, even though they're very successful, but they see and experience the beauty of a beautiful family.
Does it have an impact on them? What
Yes.
do they say?
Well, then they raise their own questions about, their own childhood when they see a family at Shabbat dinner interacting and how close they are and how beautiful it is. It plants seeds in them. And these seeds, they may not react right away, but eventually they do, and they search. And they have a special little part in their heart for Israel. And a lot of them go back. Javon's been back 3-4 times.
Is that so?
Yes.
What are your plans? I know you're going to Israel next month.
Yes.
And what are you planning to do this time?
I have some meetings at Tel Shemer or Sheba. And then I'm running a clinic day at Hadassah, Mount Scopus, where I see some patients at the sports medicine clinic. And I'm bringing my wife, and we're just going to enjoy the country and catch up with some friends.
You've also, besides everything else, you have written a book called Secrets to Optimal Health. And you've completed, or you're writing 2 more?
Well, my second book's completed. It's just getting edited. It's about hormones in general, more detail on hormones. And my third book is a completely off-topic book on a philosophical debate between evolution versus creation.
Can you tell us more about that?
Well, I have a thesis, which a lot of people would argue with, is that, say, for example, in the book of Genesis, they say that Adam was the first created human being. What I do is create a philosophical argument that no, Adam was the first created spiritual man. Humans existed prior to Adam, but they were aspiritual. And I go into arguments, say, for example, Noah's flood wasn't because God was upset at humans, but it was to eliminate the pre-spiritual man or the aspiritual man. And then I go into a debate about the reasons why. And then kind of the big take-home point for me is a lot of people say, well, Adam and Eve committed a sin by eating of the fruit of the tree of good and evil. My debate is that they didn't sin at all, that they did it on purpose because they were humans, but they were perfect humans that did not choose to be a perfect spiritual being. So what they did is created the first sacrifice themselves and able to teach their descendants how to earn and work for their spiritual perfection. And I go into a bunch of debate around that as well.
Do you expect that to be controversial?
Probably.
It sounds completely original. I haven't heard anything similar. Is there any similarity in the field?
Not that I've come across, but it's just looking at it from a perspective of, I'm a physician, and I like to look for consistency, and there were a lot of discrepancies for me when I was looking through my readings.
Okay, more with Dr. Tony Galea in a minute. Tony, you've known all over the world for your innovations in treating sports injuries. What are some of the things that you've come up with?
Well, I've been using what's known as platelet-rich plasma, which is a way to heal injuries using your own blood, where I take your blood and extract out a cell called a platelet, and I inject it into an injured area, whether it's muscle or tendon or ligament. We also use stem cells, but the stem cells are from your bone marrow, and we take those bone marrow cells and inject it into areas of injury as well. And we get a lot of regeneration. So at the end of the day...
So that means that the cartilage and the tissue regenerates itself as
to
a
an
result?
extent, and it depends where we inject it. For example, at the end, when you injure something, you're either going to get perfect tissue or a lot of scar tissue or something in between. With using stem cells or platelets, you can regenerate the tissue to look more like normal tissue, minimizing the scar tissue effect.
In your book, you open with, again, something controversial, and that's hormone therapy.
Yes.
You particularly mention melatonin, which everybody knows today is used to adjust sleep rhythms. But you go further and talk about its anti-pulmonary potentially anti-cancerous properties, anti-aging properties. Tell us about the hormones that you recommend, and in fact, that's going to be the topic of your next book, isn't it?
Yes. Now, it leads into the hormones are part of the regenerative medicine that kind of complement what we do with platelets and stem cells. You can't have platelets and stem cells without the hormones because they interact with each other. And the more research we do and the better understanding we have of these hormones, we're not trying to create an anti-aging effect, it's more age management. How can we go through our decades of life and minimize the wear and tear of arthritis, of cancer cells, of debilitating disease, and create a regeneration effect? And the hormones play an instrumental role in the treatment of these various injuries and aging illness.
Diseases associated with aging.
Yes.
The hormones go down at different points in the life.
Yes.
Is the idea to replace all the hormones that go down in your body?
I think it's more, you have to look at the relationship of one hormone to the next, because if you affect one, there's a counter effect on the others. And it's really, from my perspective, is the ratio of the different hormones is what's important. Not just looking at an isolated hormone.
But you can't replace one thing without knowing the interaction.
Exactly. And
that's the tricky thing.
And that's what the focus should be, is how the relationship of each hormone is to each other and the ratios of each to each other.
Is that possible to do that, since everybody's different? It's not you can't do a cookie cutter approach with this.
No, and you have to tailor it to the individual specific blood profile.
Is that possible?
Yes, it is.
Can the average doctor do that? Do you have to be a specialist? Do you have to be an endocrinologist?
I think the average doctor, once he's educated or she's educated on the hormone profile, they are well equipped to do it as well. The endocrinologist
I think you've got the key word, the hormone profile.
Yes.
And that's what to establish baseline.
Correct.
All right, what about supplements? There's so much controversy about supplements. What we think is good for us turns out to be bad for us.
But you got to remember, the definition of a supplement is a supplement. It means if you're not getting enough in food, and I'll give you a quick example. If you have two bowls, a bowl of supplements and a bowl of the food that contains the supplements, the food looks great and the bowl of pills looks great. Come back in a month, the food looks pretty terrible, but the pills look the same. Come back in 20 years, the food miraculously disappears, but the supplements are still there. The point of the story is that even though the supplements have the chemical structure, the missing link is that energy of life, that creative energy, that there's only a small window of opportunity that we absorb from the living food, that we cannot recreate. So if you can't get the right food, then you go to a supplement. But nothing will ever replace the food source, because there's energy transfer in the molecule of life to life.
So what do you recommend that we don't normally get in food, especially since our food supply is depleted of nutrients?
Well, it's dependent on where you live as well. In Canada, we don't have a lot of sunshine. So our daily exposure to our source of vitamin D, for example, is extremely low. So you must supplement vitamin D in
How much?
Canada.
Can you give a ballpark figure?
Well, it depends on your blood level. You can go up to 4,000 units per day, which seems high.
Again, should we get checked?
Yes.
With our blood levels with supplements?
Yes, I think you should. I think especially vitamin D, vitamin B, some of your other vitamins you can measure in the blood. And you should supplement if you're not getting the right food source, or for vitamin D, as Canadians, we should supplement.
And we have just a couple of seconds. A couple of sentences, can you tell us how to prevent injuries? What's a good one-liner?
As soon as you feel something, get it checked.
Don't live with pain.
Don't live with pain.
Don't work past pain.
Don't work through it.
Get it checked.
Get it checked.
Tony, thank you very, very much. Will you come back?
Anytime.
Let me know when those books are ready
I will.
and published, and we'll talk about it.
Thank you.
Meet Adam Epstein, the founder of Huddlers, a social network for recreational athletes. Adam, you're 26 years old. Last June, you were called to the bar, but you turned your back on it. You've holed up for 8 months now, 9 months, and about to launch a completely original new social network for recreational athletes.
That's right.
Tell us about Huddlers.
So Huddlers is, as you mentioned, a social network for the everyday athletes. And it's a place for athletes to discover where to play sports, manage who they play with right now, and discover what products and equipment are right for you. So what we're really trying to do is take what's now a word-of-mouth phenomenon of recreational athletics into an interactive online platform in which the everyday athlete, and people ask me what the everyday athlete is, and I try to say if you sweat voluntarily, you're an everyday athlete. So take the everyday athlete to create their online athletic identity, interact with other fellow athletes, discover all these things.
What do you mean online identity?
So right now I am Adam, the basketball player, baseball player.
And you are. You were in Maccabi. You represented Maccabi Canada at the Maccabian Games.
I was.
You were 16 years old.
I've played in some Maccabi games in my life. They're unbelievable experiences. But Adam, myself,
that's your sport.
Basketball is my sport and my passion. But I don't have an online athletic identity. There's no place in which I can showcase my athletic achievements, such as playing in the Maccabi Games, winning a silver medal, or getting an MVP of a league, or an all-star of a league, or winning a buzzer beater. There's no platform for me to create this online athletic persona and showcase it, because it's moments that I'm very, very proud of, and showcase it to everyone within my athletic network and my greater network at large.
Why do you want to do that? Why do you want to showcase yourself?
Because commonly athletes work very, very hard in their sports, and they're very proud of their accomplishments, and generally you're limited, as it being a word-of-mouth phenomenon, to the people that you play sports with and maybe the people that you call on your drive home from a game.
So really, it's networking.
To an extent, yeah, absolutely. Well, it is a social network for athletes to showcase themselves and interact with fellow athletes that share their passion for sports.
Beyond that, is this the concept worldwide? Is it local? How far does it go?
Well, sports is a worldwide phenomenon. It's a common bond that brings a lot of people together. So in that sense, it is. But what we're really trying to do with Huddlers is create local, engaged sporting communities so that you, Doris, and me, Adam, know what sort of athletic events and activities are going on around me and you, so you can learn to participate in them. And right now, there's not really any mechanisms to discover what's going on around you from an athletic perspective.
How did you get the idea?
As I mentioned, I'm very passionate about sports. I've been playing sports my whole life, but upon graduating law school, I was traveling around Europe, and one of my goals for that trip was to play basketball in every city that I was in. So it began with in Amsterdam, seeing the I Am Amsterdam sign in a court right there, and I played 2 hours with this guy that used to play pro ball in Germany. He says, "Where are you going next?" I say, "I'm going to Paris." He's just like, "You got to go to the Eiffel Tower. They're the best courts in all of Paris."
At the Eiffel Tower?
Lo and behold, I go to the Eiffel Tower. Unbelievable courts. I get in a great game. I meet some amazing people, and they say, "Where are you going next?" And I say, "I'm going to Barcelona." They say, "You got to play by the Song train station." And I go to this court in Barcelona, and it is the most beautiful looking basketball court. There's water fountains nearby. It's all like decked out in Jordan apparel and gear. And I play an unbelievable game. I meet some of the best friends that I met on that trip. And then I go to Italy, and no one's telling me where to go. No one's telling me where I can get in a good game. And I literally find myself jogging all over the city, going on Google, checking out forums to see where can I play basketball in Rome, Florence, Milan. And I'm literally looking at topographical maps to see slabs of concrete to see if it might be a basketball court. And they weren't, and it was awful. I wasn't able to play. I wasn't able to achieve that goal. So I realized through that is that this phenomenon of sharing rich information amongst athletes isn't just something that's unique to myself and my friends, but rather it's an international phenomenon of athletes wanting to share that information and athletes wanting to participate in the sports that they love. And that's sort of what put the idea in my head, and things have snowballed from there. And
you're just about to launch?
Yeah, so right now we're hoping to launch at the beginning of May. Yet we're still trying to engage with...
Who's we?
We is the Huddlers team.
I have this fantasy of you holding up in your parents' basement, all by yourself, like a hibernating over this idea.
No, there's several people helping me out with the Huddlers product. So we have a technical team that's producing the phase 1 of Huddlers that are not technically part of the team, but are happy to be on board. And then we have someone helping out with marketing and design as well. So that's what makes up the Huddlers team, but there's also several other stakeholders that have been helping us out along the way, sort of ambassadors to Huddlers, as we like to say, and they've been doing a great job of evangelizing what we're trying to achieve and our goal and vision.
And you write a blog as well.
Yeah, there's a Huddlers blog called Why I'm a Huddler, and it's mainly my musings on sports, startups, and all other things Huddlers. But it's also, the goal of it is to showcase other athletes, why they're interested in Huddlers, what it means to them, and why they're excited about the launch.
Okay, more about Huddlers.
Huddlers is a community specifically designed for athletes like yourself. You begin with your card. Your card is the creation of your online athletic identity. You can use your card to showcase all your athletic activity. On Huddlers, you'll be able to share your recent athletic activity, such as finishing a killer fitness class. You'll be able to share your real-life athletic achievements, so everyone in your network knows when you win MVP. You can discover which products and equipment are best for you by seeing how other athletes that you know and trust find them. And you can find the best places to play the sports that you love by finding out what sports are going on in your neighborhood. But most of all, Huddlers will help you to become more efficient, more engaged, and become the best athlete you can be. Huddlers.com, connecting athletes like us.
Stay with us. You turned your back on a career in law in an age of work anxiety, and you have taken an enormous risk. Tell us about that.
Yeah.
Why did you not do it in your spare time? You could have worked.
That's true. So let me back that up and say I pursued a career in law because I always wanted to marry my passion for sports with my professional career. I didn't know to what extent that would be, but I always thought law was a great avenue to do so. It would open up options. And to be honest, my dream was always to get a job with an NBA team and in basketball operations. And you do that by either being an ex-player, ex-coach, or a smart guy with a law degree. So I was trying to be a portion of that third option. So at being called to the bar, I sort of had this idea in my head. I was planning on applying for jobs with NBA teams. And as I was doing that, I wrote the business plan for this, and really things snowballed from there. Every week there was a greater development. Every week things moved better and quicker. I started to learn a lot more about this. And it's great. Like, I love the space that I'm in. The tech startup space is an incredible industry. There's an an energy that is unbeknownst in any industry I've seen so far. And people ask me if I miss any aspects of my legal life, and to be honest, I don't. There's 4 aspects of working on Huddlers that I absolutely love that was completely devoid of what I was doing in law, and that's creativity, innovation, strategy, and risk. And those 4 things aren't for everyone. Law is a very risk-averse profession, and it might be unfortunate, but I enjoy risk. I enjoy the high risk, high reward nature of the site, and I enjoy the fact that a lot of it is on me to wake up every day, work as hard as possible, and to develop a sustainable business.
You have the discipline to only answer to yourself and to start the day and end the day.
Mm-hmm. Well,
mind you, as you put it, you don't punch a clock, but on the other hand, you could work 24 hours a day.
Right. So the entrepreneurial life is somewhat glamorous these days, and it shouldn't be, because it requires a tremendous amount of time, effort.
And self-discipline.
And self-discipline as well. And what really fuels that is a passion for the product that you're creating. I mean, I don't consider myself an unbelievable entrepreneur, but I consider myself incredibly passionate about the goals that we're trying to achieve with Huddlers. And for other aspiring entrepreneurs out there, if you're not unbelievably passionate about the product that you're creating, don't get in it, because it is very, very difficult. It's tough to sleep at night at times. You can't go to a movie and not think about the product that you're creating.
It's with you constantly.
It's constantly with you. It's all consuming. It's great. It's exciting. The highs are as high as they get, but the lows are low. And what gets you through the lows is a passion for what you're trying to do.
There's a lot of talk about lean startup. What does that mean?
So lean startup is a movement that's become very popular of late. But it shouldn't be, because it's something that is really just a business sense in anything. So lean, the idea of lean is obtaining customer feedback as early and as efficiently as possible so that you can maximize value in what you're producing and minimize waste. So really that's...
Well, if you're just starting, how do you get customer feedback?
Exactly.
Who knows about you?
Exactly. So people have asked me how we did that for Huddlers. So one thing that we did was, we obviously couldn't create this big site with a snap of a finger and get customer feedback in that way. So what we did was we built the Huddlers on Ning. And Ning is a site in which you can create very basic custom social networks, but it's ugly, it's not great. So we extended a bunch of invitations to would-be athletes on Huddlers and say, interact accordingly on Ning. And here's the instructions of how you would interact on Huddlers, and let's learn from how you interact on Ning. So we got people to sign up. The validation of the concept was great. They're just like, hey, like, this is something I'd be totally interested in. And they checked it out and they played around, and we got feedback from them. They said, hey, like, there's nothing on this Ning site that I would want for this, but if you could develop that into Huddlers, like, that would be unreal. So there's several aspects of Huddlers that we weren't going to build in our phase one.
It was like a dry run. You've got a kind of sampling.
Exactly. It's getting that customer feedback, so we don't build features that people don't want and focus on the features that people do want, such as interactive scheduling for teams and groups, as well as managing the events that you have, so that you're able to know exactly who's coming to the game and when your next game is going to be.
You can even do things like that?
Absolutely. That's what we're trying to do.
Do you have any competition?
Yeah.
Are you unique?
Well, we're creating a neat, unique product. The competitive landscape when I first began working on this was rather meek, but evidently a lot of people have seen the pain points in recreational athletics, and it's become rather substantial since then.
Does that worry you?
It does and it doesn't. It worries me that people are able to get a head start on what we're trying to accomplish, but I've seen the competition, and there are sites out there that are getting heavily funded, and I don't think that they're bringing value to the athletes. I don't think they're doing it right.
Okay, so you're doing something different, and we'll find out what you're doing that nobody else is doing in just a minute.
Right.
There is competition in what you're doing, but you say you're doing something different that nobody else is doing.
Mm-hmm. What is it? So our competition is really focusing on things from a vanity perspective, in which create my online athletic identity, watch me hit 450-foot home runs, like look at me sort of thing, which to an extent everything online is in some level of vanity perspective, but what we're really trying to achieve is provide value to the athletes. Answer these questions that they're wondering and their pain points, such as where to play sports, what leagues are right for me.
I want to ask you where people can get this, how they can apply that information.
Right. So
in North America, in Europe, where?
Yeah, so they'll sign up a profile, what we call a card on Huddlers, and they'll be able to interact initially with the venues that they play sports in. So they'll be able to see everyone in their athletic network, where they're playing sports, what they think of these venues, and they're able to comment on it and see current and past events at all these respective venues. So that's answering the where question. The what products and equipment are right for you. With every athlete, you select the sports that you play, and you select the products and equipment that you use for the sports that you play.
Is that included?
We're going to try and include shuffleboard players. Generally, the shuffleboard players aren't as passionate as most others, but
skating.
So for example, you would select your skates, and you would be able to select your skates and review them, or fan them as we say. And through that, we now have user reviews tied to athletic credentials. So right now, if you're trying to determine what golf clubs are right for you, you'll have to go on forums or blogs to see what people are saying, but you want to know specifically what golfers you know are saying. So I can see that a guy shot 180 and isn't a very good golfer. I don't really care what he thinks about that driver. But a guy that I know that just shot a scratch game that has 50 fans on the Big Driver Award on Huddlers, I care what he has to say, and specifically I care what he has to say about that driver, so I'm going to look for that products and equipment. So that's the what. And with the who, every athlete that's managed a team, been on a team or group, all those two main issues. They want to avoid the annoying reply all emails, and they also really want to know who's coming to the next game. And it's tough to manage that on the current software that's there today. So we're creating an efficient, interactive dashboard in which you can see who's in and who's out, the burning question for any athletic event. So that's where we really provide value. And right now, if you look at the other social networks that are competitors right now in the sports field, they don't solve those burning questions. And on account of that, they don't provide that value.
So you're really doing something absolutely original.
I hope so. And I hope our prospective user base does also.
So what happens when someone signs in? Give us a day in a Huddler participant.
Right, so you'd create your card, and by doing so you select the sports that you'd play, but the great thing is you nominate yourself for 5 awards. And as I sort of mentioned, your awards are your real-life athletic activities and accomplishments. So you can nominate yourself for a Maccabi Silver Medal, as you mentioned earlier, or you nominate yourself for the Enforcer Award in hockey, or the Marksman Award in basketball, or the Cannon to show a good arm in baseball. And upon doing that, you create your card, and your card is all your sports-specific information, a little bio about yourself.
What about just sheer recreational tennis?
Yeah, so for tennis, you might be able to nominate yourselves for awards like Slicer and Dicer.
What if I don't want any awards?
Then you don't need to.
How do I benefit? How do I benefit?
You benefit still by figuring out the products and equipment that are right for you, where to play tennis, and who to play with. But awards are fun, and you should be proud of the tennis that you play, and the people in your athletic network want to be able to say, hey, Doris, that was a nice serve that you had that game. Like, I'm going to fan your serve award in tennis, and I'm going to say that you have a great backhand in tennis, so that now you're allowing for athletic credentials that you didn't otherwise have. And there's accreditation from your people in your athletic network. So with any web or mobile application today, I think it's important to make people smile. And when you receive a fan for a specific athletic attribute of yours, I think it's going to make people smile, and that's where we provide value to our athletes.
But how do people know? How do you get that feedback that I have a terrific tennis serve?
Well, if I play with you, I'd be able to see that.
that's how it works, with people that know you.
Exactly.
And
It's people in your athletic network crediting you for your athletic attributes and accomplishments.
And that extends to, list the sports.
There's a lot. Pretty much any sport that you can think of, even shuffleboard. So just off the top of my head, sports that we're really focusing on are team sports. That's where our value proposition lies the best. So basketball, baseball, hockey, football, soccer, volleyball. Tennis isn't a team sport, but we're involved with that. But as well, group fitness is a big thing.
Group fitness, you include fitness?
Absolutely. Group fitness is a big aspect in what we're trying to achieve. So yoga, Pilates, Zumba classes, CrossFit, boot camp, stuff like that. It's all athletes connecting and wanting to showcase their achievements, stuff that they're proud of, and manage, as I mentioned, where to participate in these things and manage the people who you play with.
What about tips and
yeah, tips are definitely something that we'd like to get into.
Sports injuries and therapy. Is that going to be included?
I hope so down the road. As I mentioned, athletes share a lot of rich information that they'd like to share. And it's not just user reviews tied to a restaurant. It's something that people are very passionate about. So tips on workouts, tips on rehabilitation mechanisms.
From people who are in your field.
These are things that we'd like to have both recreational athletes including these tips, and also what we really want to get into is providing a platform for smaller sports businesses to be able to interact with athletes. And Tony Galea, who was here earlier, his business is a little more substantial, but he'd be able to articulate specific rehabilitation mechanisms to athletes that he's dealt with interactively on Huddlers, and he would be able to show what sort of mechanisms he's using and be able to have the athletes tied to their athletic credentials should say how much they enjoyed his rehabilitation.
It feels to me as though in my field, in my area, which is tennis, I could have friends all over the world.
Yeah.
It's like joining an international club.
Yeah, well, that's the
like
goal.
that?
And sports is an international club. Like, you can go anywhere and be best friends with someone that you play sports with. And right now, if you were to go to, taking back to my experience, Barcelona and Paris to play basketball, I can pick these guys as Facebook friends, but I don't really want to know where they're going to party tomorrow and who their girlfriend is or what song they're listening to. I want to know how they're playing basketball, where they're playing. I want to see what their accomplishments are so I can congratulate them and interact with them accordingly.
Okay, I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you very much.
Let's see how this unfolds and develops. I think it's going to go.
I hope so.
I wish you all the luck in the world.
I hope so. You guys, for all the people that are interested, check out our site, www.huddlers.com. Our blog is blog.huddlers.com. We're on Facebook. Like us on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter @WeAreHuddlers.
Okay, thanks.
For sure.